This past year has been a massively challenging one for us online business owners, and I would like to think that next year will be a little bit easier on us all, but it could well end up being another challenging one. Fingers crossed, a little bit better, but still challenging in its own ways. So with that in mind, I thought I would make a podcast episode this week on what we can do to weatherproof our handmade businesses for the upcoming year. Some of these things are things that I've already been doing this past year, and I credit them with helping me stay in business in this rocky sea of nonsense that we've been riding. And I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the UK there has been plenty of nonsense. Welcome to the Coffee and Craft podcast. I am Kim, your host, I guess. I don't have any craft to do today, but I do have coffee. Feel free to do your crafting or your work as I chat. Before I dive into the actual things that we can do, I just want to reassure everybody that this is not going to be a doom and gloom episode about the economy or anything. You don't need me to tell you all about that. I'm willing to bet that you know all about it already. The idea, the purpose, the intention of this video is to perhaps offer a little beacon of hope, or maybe just something that, you know, if you're feeling a little bit like everything is out of your control, maybe to show you that there are things that you can do that are within your control, because sometimes that helps. I'm just sharing with you some of the things that I have done and that I'm going to be putting in place myself to weatherproof my own business, or to continue weatherproofing my own business. And as always, some of the things that I'm going to be talking about are going to be things that take time. I am not one of these people that will rock up and go, I have this really easy, quick tip, because I'm annoying that way. And also, life is annoying that way. And things rarely work that quickly and simply without much effort. So the things that I'm going to be talking about are things that if you were to start now, you would see the benefits and the results a little way down the line after you'd put in consistent effort. So as always, take what serves you and leave the rest. You'll have heard this one before, but the first one is to diversify your income streams. There once was a time when I made all of my income in my business from Etsy and Etsy alone. Nope. I now make my business income from a mix of my Etsy shop, my website shop, and this here YouTube channel. Not one of those alone pays the bills, but it is a joint effort of all three. The only downside to diversifying your income streams, as good advice as that is, is that obviously it's work, separate jobs. Say for example, I've got 3 income streams. They're 3 different jobs. Even the Etsy shop and my website shop, they are still 2 shops though, and that means 2 different jobs. And then YouTube is a whole thing all of its own. So you do need the time to do this. You may not be able to do all of the things. Which brings me to the next thing. Diversifying doesn't just look like diversifying your jobs or your income streams in that way. Sometimes diversifying can look like selling in different places. And as you can see, I've done that myself with the website. You can sell on a website. You can sell on other marketplaces. If you only sell on Etsy, for example, there are other marketplaces. You can sell on social media. You can sell in your email list. Apologies, everybody. My battery pack just ran out and I needed to switch to my phone. So if the sound quality is different and the picture quality is obviously different, that is why. I need to buy myself another battery pack. But I digress. Where was I? Oh yes, you can diversify not just how many income streams that you have, but where you sell your thing. That is a form of diversification because, for example, if you sell on Etsy and Etsy shuts down tomorrow and you're selling elsewhere, at least you've got that buffer. It's not as if you have to start all over again. So that's another way that you can diversify. And of course, there are ways of diversifying your offerings, your products. So I don't know how many of you have been following me for a little while, but last year I went into a hard and fast pivot and I was changing up my products. I was selling finished handmade items. My items are sort of hand embroidery there, and I wanted to include some more sort of supplies-esque items to my shop. Do you remember I said earlier that some of the things that I was going to talk about were things that I had been working on over the last year or so? This is one of them. And it's one of the things that I credit most with helping me stay in business. So going from finished handmade items to supplies sort of tapping into a different customer base. So I was tapping into the do-it-yourself customer that were looking for supplies and kits, for example. But then if you are in the handmade niche, selling physical handmade products like I was, there's also the print on demand niche. I'm talking about Etsy, but I guess anywhere. And also digital. You can bring in products in those niches that are relevant to whatever it is that you do. I've got a few digital products in my own shop in the form of embroidery patterns. So there's lots of different ways that you can diversify your products or your offerings to tap into new customer bases. Basically, when you're thinking about diversification, you've got to be thinking about it in all terms of your business, not just the products that you make or the income streams, but also how you promote your products, where you sell, all of it. Don't get too cozy and focus on just one thing. I've been there, I've done that, and it was wonderful until it wasn't. And then when it was Etsy, funnily enough, I've made a video about my business journey, and in a nutshell, I was doing great on Etsy until they brought in a few policy changes, and it halved my income overnight. So I had to diversify. And since then, it's the diversifying that has kept me in business. So yes, don't rely on any one thing, be that your products, where you're getting your money from, how you're promoting your business, any of that. Diversification. The next one is so important, and it's going to be really difficult to talk about this without really going into depth, but you need to make sure that you're talking to the right customers. I hear a fair amount of pushback on this, but the people who get it, get it. You have a finite amount of time and energy to spend on your business. So you don't have the time or the energy to speak to everyone all of the time. This idea that everyone is a possible customer isn't actually right, and it will be holding you back, because dependent on what you do, you will have a person who will be genuinely interested in your stuff and people who won't care at all. That sounds horrible, but it's true. If I spend my time and my energy promoting my handmade, hand-embroidered project bags to mechanics who have no interest in crafting, that's going to be my time and my energy wasted. And it's going to annoy them, because they're just going to have me going, "Do you want to buy my stitchy thing?" And they're going to be like, "No thanks, love, I need to get a gasket for my car. I don't know what a gasket is." My brain just literally went to, what is something your dad would say? My dad likes to build cars. I'll have to ask him what a gasket is. Now, there's another reason why this is really true, and that's in terms of algorithms. Again, we are online businesses, so we are promoting our businesses online. So like it or not, we have to deal with algorithms. Now, how most algorithms work is that the platform will take the thing, the post, the video, the whatever, and they will test it out with the most engaged audience first, and they will see how that post, video, etc. works with that crowd. If it goes down well, they'll push it out further. And if it goes well with that crowd, they'll push it out further still. If it keeps on doing well with each layer, it will push it out further and further and further, until eventually it's pushing it out to brand new people that have never interacted with you before. So you want to make sure that your post, your video, your thing is marketed to the right people. So if you make a fairly generic post because you're trying to speak to everyone, the algorithms won't necessarily know who's the best fit to show it to. So they will test it with your engaged audience, and dependent on who engages with it within that circle, they will push it out to more people like that. So if your circle is full of people who are not the right audience, your work is going to get pushed out to people who are not the right audience. I had this problem on social media for a little while. So I had a lot of people who were wonderful people, fellow business owners, but not necessarily people who were looking for my products. And therefore, all of my posts were getting pushed out to fellow business owners. And it was only a very small proportion of those that had any interest in my actual work. They wanted to hear about the business element. Nothing wrong with that. but it meant that my posts tanked and I never really got traction. You know, the people who saw my post would not convert into sales, etc., etc. That was because I was talking to the wrong people. When I post something on social media now, it's about my products. I'm talking about my products. So it only attracts the people who are interested in that. And therefore, my posts have started getting more engagement and they're going out to more people because I am talking to the right people. And yes, my conversion rate has increased too, unsurprisingly. So over the years, I've had to work really hard to unhook myself from being drawn into the vanity metric chase that social media have us all chasing. And Etsy to a point. There's no real reason for them to have the amount of our sales public, but they do because that is their version of the vanity metric. In Etsy's case, how many sales you've made is irrelevant. How much money you've made, that's key. Because you can have someone who sells 100 items at £1 each, or you can have someone who makes one sale at £100. The amount of sales is not reflective of how healthy a business is. Which is kind of linked to this, and that is know your numbers. And you'd be surprised how many people don't. It's a boring job. It's also a job that can be quite scary if you're afraid to find out whether or not your business is on the right track or not. But knowing your numbers, it really does help you see which direction your business is going. It also helps you see a turn in trends before that happens. So if you're riding a trend and sales are going up, if you start noticing a drop off of a certain product, you can start thinking, this trend is starting to wane, I must lean into something else, for example. But the numbers go so much further than just telling you whether or not you're making a profit and whether or not you have a viable business. Your numbers tell you if you're heading in the right direction, if you're getting closer to your goals. They can tell you what part of your business is the most profitable, where you should be leaning into and using and spending most of your money and your energy, and what also is probably sucking too much of that away and what could be dropped. You need to keep on track of your numbers. If you just review them once a month, at the beginning of each month, just look at your figures, know exactly how much you've spent on your business and how much you've made in profit, because you also need to make sure that you are making a certain amount after all of your costs. And costs obviously include things like postage and materials and fees, the whole caboodle. I don't think I've ever used that word before. Caboodle. What? Okay. Just to let you behind the curtain a little bit, I have a baseline amount that I try to make every month at the bare minimum, and this is what I need to cover all of my monthly business expenses and pay my bills. So I have other goals that I try and reach as well, but this is what I like to call my baseline. I cannot go below that. And I have a stretch goal that I want to reach, and I have other goals that I want to take my business in. And how much I'm making each month not only tells me whether or not I can pay the mortgage for another month, but it also tells me if my business is going in the right direction or if there's something that needs attention. And then I can dial down and I can look where most of my income is coming from, so I can focus my energies more on the things that are actually bringing in the most profit. Linked to knowing your numbers is also cutting down on unnecessary expenses. Now, I've talked before about how I'm a bit of a tightwad, so this does come fairly naturally to me and not so much to others, like my husband. But I digress. When it comes to your business, you don't want to be throwing it out left, right, and centre. You want to keep on track of your spending and make sure that you're only spending your money on things that are necessary for your business. And if you think, oh, well, this will be good for the business, ask yourself, is it going to help you move the business forward, grow the business, or bring some money in later down the line? An example of this would be my camera. Yes, the camera that I'm not blimming using, that was a huge expense, and it didn't feel very good to spend that much money, but it was a huge investment in this business and did and will help me grow the business and bring in more income. Another thing that will be a good investment will be another battery pack for it. Another thing that I wanted was pretty storage to put along these shelves. And also, you see that spotty folder there? I hate it. I want to get some nice aesthetically pleasing ones that don't feel quite so jarring in the background. Do I need those though? Nope, I don't. And getting pretty folders and pretty storage is not going to help me move my business forward in any way, shape or form. It's a nice to have. So those have been shelved. Pardon the pun. I will be able to treat myself when things are a little bit more flush. But right now in this global economy, that's kind of the reason that I'm making this video, I'm being good. So yes, be honest with yourself and cut down on unnecessary expenses. Do you really need that thing? And this is the last one, and yet it's probably the most important one, and that is be willing to adapt. I see it a lot as well. I'm not alone. People are afraid to embrace change, and I am no exception. For me, this can look like embracing new technology. I've reached the point where it just feels that technology and advances in technology is moving too fast for me to keep up. And it just feels like yet another thing to worry about a lot of the time. When I'm saying this, I'm thinking at the moment of AI. I have been resisting that for a long time because part of that is just the concerns about it in general. But also it is just a new thing to learn, and it's new and I don't understand it, and that's scary. But I am now forcing myself to at least look into it and try and understand it so that I can keep up with the changing climate of online business, because AI is going nowhere. So I at least want to understand it. That way I can choose whether or not it will be a good fit for me to use or not. But once I realize that something isn't going anywhere, and that whether I like it or not, the future is going to include a thing, I force myself to try and at least understand that thing, because if I don't, I will get left behind. Yeah, change sucks sometimes. Now, this is not me saying that you have to embrace AI. I just picked that as an example of something that I initially was like, no, no, no. And now I'm like, ugh, if I have to, fine. But it doesn't necessarily mean technology. For you, it could just be learning a new skill, trying out videos, for example, or even just trying a new medium in your craft or your art. Switching from watercolors to digital, or trying out embroidery if you never tried it before. It's really good. The irony of change is that the one thing in life that will never change is change itself. I know. First time I heard that, I was like, oh, but it's kind of true, isn't it? And if your business has plateaued and you're feeling a little bit stuck, I can almost guarantee you that somewhere along the line, it's because a change needs to be made. So, in a nutshell, in order to future-proof your business and survive what is left of these challenging times, or at least what I hope is what's left of these challenging times, consider doing at least some of these 5 things. Diversify, be it your income streams, where you sell, what you sell, how you sell it, how you talk to people. Just think about diversification and how that would improve your business. Speak to the right people, so important. And I'm going to be wanging on about this a lot in future, just so you know. Know your numbers, cut down on unnecessary purchases, and learn to adapt if you struggle with it, like me. And I will see you again next week.